Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to begin by giving all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Ruach Double honors to the elders and to the apostle Millstone, and then our respected brothers out there pushing and spreading the gospel of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahshai to the four corners of the world. Now, through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahshai, I have two articles. One of them entitled Zelensky Forced to Face Tough New Reality After Trump-Putin Phone Call, and one from CNN, which is European leaders to hold emergency summit as Ukraine as Putin-Trump calls strains ties. What's going on right now is that you have this Nero. He's trying to set up some things behind the scenes without anyone else involved, and people are being skeptical and they're scrambling to figure out what's going on. And but we're gonna read the article, get the whole story out, and through the spiritual understanding that Yahweh Shema has given us, we can tie that into scripture. So the first one, right here, begins. It says, America is under new management. So give me a second, let me highlight it. America is under new management. Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky is joining a growing list of U.S. allies who are finding that the world, according to Donald Trump, is a colder, more uncertain, and potentially more dangerous place for them. It must have been bad enough for Zelensky to hear Trump's abrupt announcement that he had welcomed Russia's President Vladimir Putin back to international diplomacy with a 90-minute phone call to be followed by a face-to-face meeting, perhaps in Saudi Arabia. After Putin, the White House dialed up Zelensky's number, speaking to journalists in Ukraine the morning after Zelensky accepted the fact that Putin received the call first. Although, to be honest, it is not very pleasant. That's what he said. It says what stung Zelensky more was that Trump, who rang him after he spoke to Putin, seemed to regard him at best as a junior agent to any peace talks. One of Zelensky's many nightmares must be the prospect of Trump and Putin attempting to settle Ukraine's future without anyone else in a negotiation, not even NATO, right? It says he told the journalist that Ukraine will not be able to accept any agreement made without its involvement. It was vital, he said, that everything does not go according to Putin's plan, in which he wants to do everything to make this negotiation bilateral, okay? And so President Zelensky is heading to the Munich Security Conference starting on Friday, where he will attempt to rally Ukraine's allies. He faces a tough meeting with Trump's Vice President J.D. Vance, who was one of the sternest critics of Joe Biden's aid to Ukraine. Yeah, man, people ain't, Babylon is under new management as it began, and the people that are in charge now, they criticize the aid that was given to Ukraine, It says the argument Zelensky will hear from the Americans is that Ukraine is losing and it needs to get real about what happens next. Hey, I'm telling you, man, this is, they will be a scapegoat for America's betrayal. Okay, it says he will argue that Ukraine can win with the right backing. The European Union is worried too. After meeting and praising the Ukrainian Defense Minister Rustem Umerov, the EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas posted that Ukraine must have a central role in any negotiation. Our priority now must be strengthening Ukraine and providing robust Security Council's guarantees, Kallas said, and these are the areas that they've been losing. Okay, let's see. Yeah, these are the areas that they've lost to the Russians. It's a huge area. It says Zelensky is painfully aware that while his European allies are sounding much more steadfast than the Americans, the U.S. remains the world's strongest military power. He told The Guardian last week that security guarantees without America are not real security guarantees. And this is why the scripture says that the whore which sitteth upon the beast, because of what? Because of its power and its influence and its money. You know, that's why the scripture says that power was given. Let's get it right now. Oops. Whoops. 13. I'm looking for a specific point. Right. It says, and they worshiped the dragon. Let me see. So let me get it right now. And I saw one of its heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And so, the head that was wounded was the Roman Empire going down. The first and second chapter describes the Edomites' empires. Let me hide these things so it's easier to read. Okay, so the beast that was seen. Oh, it's like it. Okay. So the head of the beast that was wounded to death and healed was Rome. When it fell, it was resurrected in a form. It was reincarnated as America. It says, and they worshipped the dragon, which gave power to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, and who's able to make war with him. So the dragon is Rome, and it gives power. It's sort of like the powerhouse of the Edomite coalition. And so who's able to make war against the beast? Who's able to, make war with him? And this is pretty much what we just heard from the Ukrainian president. It says, collectively, European allies have given Ukraine more money than the U.S., but the Americans have weapons and air defense systems, like the Patriot missiles batteries that protect Kiev, that Europeans simply cannot provide. And what he's trying to understand, is that when you take a look at Amalek, America supports Amalek unconditionally. I mean, they would just hand over whatever Amalek asks, no questions asked, regardless of the consequences. But when it comes to Ukraine, it's different. And they're trying to figure out, how is it different? Here it is, it's bad to have a terrorist attack over there in the land of Israel, but there's an actual invasion going on and millions of people are dying, a whole lot more than there are in the Middle East. But somehow they've allied themselves with the Middle East against a nation that's not really a threat to America. Whereas a nation that's actually a threat to America, which is Russia, America is not doing anything about it. So these things really, it doesn't add up. People, when they sit there and they try to put two and two together and figure out the reasons behind the decisions America makes, there's no sense in it. So it says, collectively, European allies have given Ukraine more money than the U.S., but the Americans have weapons and air defense systems, like the Patriot missile batteries that protect Kiev, that Europeans simply cannot provide. Says Putin will be delighted that he is getting a much easier ride that he had from Biden. The former U.S. president called Putin, among other things, a pure thug, a brutal tyrant, and a murderous dictator, and cut off contact after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 22. Okay, and another thing about these Ukraine is sort of like a black state. They are actually wicked, and hey, the Wadi Bashim for bringing judgment upon them. Them guys are wicked, and if you simply do a little bit of digging, you'll find out that they're into arms deal. They instigate wars between nations, and they give them weapons in these third world countries. It's sort of like a black state, okay? And they're wicked, and their wickedness have caught up to them, and now they expect the sympathy, of these other nations. But nevertheless, in the for the sake of what NATO's Babylon should be doing something, that is bad for Russia, but Babylon isn't doing that. And those who have made themselves in league with America are worried that America, if push comes to shove, they won't protect. All right. It says just to drive home the point that everything had changed, Trump followed up yesterday's positive assessment of his talks with Putin with an upbeat early morning post on his platform, Truth Social, reflecting on great talks with Russia and Ukraine yesterday. There are now a good possibility of ending that horrible, very bloody war. It says Putin. Now, Trump is a businessman, and he can, whip up a deal to end a war. But is the deal going to be satisfying, every involving party to make peace last? And the answer is obviously no. It says Putin because we know World War III is sure to happen. It says Putin is not just back in conversation with the most powerful country in the world. With Trump, he may now see himself as the arbiter of the end game in the war he started when he broke international law with the all-out invasion of Ukraine almost exactly 3 years ago. At the White House, Trump seems to suggest that the huge numbers of dead and wounded in the Russian military gave some kind of legitimacy to Putin's demand to keep the land captured and annexed by Russia. They took a lot of land and they fought for that land, Trump said. As for Ukraine, some of it will come back, and this is devastating when they heard this, okay? His defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, remarks at a NATO meeting in Brussels were more direct. He wanted Ukraine to be sovereign and prosperous, but we must start by recognizing the return to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders is an unrealistic objective. Chasing this illusionary goal will only prolong the war and cause more suffering. Trump is still at the easy end of what could become an impossibly tough diplomatic challenge, boasting that he has the key to ending the Russia-Ukraine Russia-Ukraine war is one thing. Making that happen, it's something else. His declaration before any talks with Russia start that Ukraine will not join NATO nor get back all of its occupied land has been widely criticized as a poor start by a man who claims to be the world's best deal maker. Okay, so yeah, this is what's going on, and the NATO nations are furious because this is a complete contradiction to the goals or the objective that they had for Ukraine. It says Zelensky's declared objective is to regain Ukrainians' lost territory, which amounts to around a fifth of its total landmass. He also wants Ukraine to become a full member of NATO. Putin insists that any peace deal would require Ukraine to give up the land Russia has captured, as well as areas it has not occupied, including the cities of uh, Zaporizhia, which has a population of more than 500,000. Ukraine will also become neutral, demilitarized, and will never join NATO. This is crazy. And so, in light of this article comes up. Okay, European leaders to hold emergency summit as Ukraine as Putin calls strains ties. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, let me highlight this, is set to join European leaders at an emergency summit in Paris on Monday. Britain's PA media reported after the relationships of the continent with Washington was strained by the U.S. President Donald Trump speaking to Russian President Vladimir Putin as he pushed for a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. The UK will work to ensure we keep the US and Europe together. We cannot allow any divisions in the alliance to distract from the external enemies we face. Starmer was quoted as saying in a statement released by Downing Street on Saturday, This is a once in a generation moment for our national security, where we engage with the reality of the world today and the threat we face from Russia. It's clear Europe must take on a greater role in NATO as we work with the United States to secure Ukraine's future and face down the threat we face from Russia, the Prime Minister also said. So now you have the Egyptian against the Egyptian. You know, you have one side wanting one thing, but one side saying they're willing to let that thing go in order for a deal, and there's a whole bunch of chaos going on. And it's just sweet news, okay, for those that are in Yahweh Shem Yahshai, because things will just keep escalating. World War III comes, the missile comes, especially when the chip is also being made into effect. A lot of countries are doing away with paper money, and you're setting everything online, making everything digital. The chip is coming to pass. We're almost out of here, all right? So with that, I'm going to end right there. Shalom. Yahweh Bashim Shabrakatham, Toy Akims and Aquos that are listening in truth and sincerity. May the blessing of Yahweh Bashim Shai be upon the house, and the blessing of Lefshin be upon us. Until next time, I'm going to end it. Shalom.